Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sons and Daughters of Liberty. Give me a few. Actually trying to stream this from my phone. Internet's kind of really crappy tonight, so hopefully this is coming in good. It's taken me forever just to be able to share these. In fact, I'm just going to get on with it. Yeah, that's how bad the internet is. I mean, I'm not even sure how good quality I'm coming in through the phone. I'm still technically jacked into the internet. But it looks like I got audio, so but I've been wanting to do this topic for a little while. It's just a matter, of finding the right time when people's attention is actually on the things that we're going to be talking about. All of a sudden, with what's happened here in Ohio and Palestine, Ohio, with the train derailment and all these other train derailments, which, by the way, there's been, as of yesterday, with the one in Michigan, that puts us up to 46, I believe, for the year. And this is February. We're halfway in February and we've already had 46 train derailments. But that, I've talked about this. It goes back to how bad our infrastructures are. And this is where, every administration has been guilty of this, neglecting our infrastructure. They promise and talk about, campaign about it, but when it comes right down to it, money is not going into our infrastructure due to loopholes and the way the systems are set up for outsourcing to contractors, people taking kickbacks for the money that they're receiving instead of the lowest bidder. Sometimes the highest bidders get the contract and they're underselling the contract. And they're, you know, greasing the other person's palms. Here's the extra money that we're not going to use because we're going to buy all this cheap material. And, the Green Party and the Green Deal has been the biggest problems in this scenario. But it's ongoing. I mean, I'm glad to see the attention is being brought to our rail system, but it's just not our rail system that's been under attack. Our electrical substations have been being attacked. Food producer plants, processing plants, mysterious fires for no reason. A huge egg farm or chicken farm, not even 3 or 4 weeks ago, up in flames. Now we are dealing with in Florida. We're hearing of more warehousing and chemical storage facilities and produce facilities, fertilizer. One was housing fertilizer. It is like it's a deliberate attack on our food, and it has been. Look at what they all learned from jacking the price of gas, which in turn we're seeing more train derailments now because our rail systems are being used even more to offset the cost for the semi drivers to shorten their distances they're going from, because $3,000-$4,000 to fill up a semi is a bit ridiculous. Diesel has not gone down. Those that drive gas cars, we get the benefit of, it's nice to see those prices have come down a little bit. They're not down. They're still up. They're still high. I'm sorry, I don't care if it comes down 75 cents. It's still not down to what it was pre-COVID. Then, we witnessed something else during COVID, during the shutdowns and lockdowns. Gas prices dropped down to almost 90s lows. I mean, the cheapest I got gas for during it was right after the lockdowns lifted, was $1.24. But as soon as the Biden administration came in, gas prices shot to record highs, ridiculous highs. We should never have seen those gas prices, which affected our economy. Our government is systematically, intentionally destroying this country, and they're destroying it where it hurts the most. Just not economically, but they're creating food shortages, destroying chemical farmland. With chemicals, this possibility is going to destroy thousands of acres of farmland in Palestine, Ohio. Why? Because they refuse to fix their rail systems here in Ohio. The Biden administration says we're not giving you no aid, disaster relief, or aid to Ohio. Mike DeWine says there's nothing wrong. Well, one, I don't believe you. We learned a lesson about believing you during COVID, and I'm really not going to believe you when you had private contractors come out there and say, this is our science. These private contractors who work for Norfolk Railway. I'm sorry. Frick, no good. Not that I'd believe what the EPA would say or OSHA would say either. So, I believe what the eyes can see. I can believe what the reports I'm hearing from friends and families out there. And it's stuff we've seen, I'm sorry, guys, that videos have been floating around of that train going through those bent up, crooked railroads, having to go real slow. That's real. There's railroad tracks like that here in Ohio because they do not fix them. The railway system is the last thing they put any money into. So by the time they get to put some money into it, it's the bottom of the barrel money, and they might be able to do 20 miles of rail line. And I don't think a lot of people understand how dependent we still are of our railways. But you wouldn't realize that when you're looking at box cars, freight cars that were from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. We don't have no new freight cars. What few engines we have that are new are on the Amtrak stations in the big cities that go from, say, New York to DC. That's probably the newest and probably best. Now, I'm not going to say best upkept because they're not upkept like they should be. But look at each of these new green deals. Every time they push something, it's always taking funding. Stripping funding. They will argue about all these green deals. They try to slide these green deals into bills and legislations that strip away from money going to our infrastructure. Green, as we found out, and those of us that take time to do research, is not green. It's actually not environmental friendly. And in many cases, it's a heavy taxation on the natural resources that they got to strip from the earth to get it. And in some cases, like our chips and logic chips, for all these cars that we got to have 300,000 per car, we don't even harvest those diamonds here. It has to be done from another country. So why are we so focused on putting more chips in vehicles when we should be putting less chips and getting away from them? Just like anybody that studied your electric batteries, your lithium and cobalt batteries, how dangerous they are. But that's what they want you to have because they know you can't recycle them. They know if they get to dispose of them, it's a natural disaster in the making. Our governments has fundamentally created this problem. And it's a very old tactic of war. You destroy the country from within. You start with the natural resource. You start poisoning the well, is the term. And that's what they've been doing by not appropriating proper money to where it needs to go to make sure our infrastructure is fixed. They want everybody to be in electric cars, but they refuse to fix our electrical grid. You know, there was a report that came out of Idaho that the military ended up shooting at what turned out to be FBI agents that were trying to sabotage another substation. We've had, I think we're up to like 20 substations that's been shot at, taken down just by people shooting at them or going in and messing around and bringing them down, knocking out power for hundreds of thousands of people, causing blackouts. This is intentionally being done. We see these, there's always going to be vehicle accidents, but a lot of these vehicle accidents is from failed infrastructures, failed roads, potholes, because the roads aren't getting re-asphalted with good asphalt. They'll use cheap asphalt, or as they do here in Ohio, well, we're just going to stone it and save some money on a major highway instead of tearing it down. And I mean, in the state of Ohio, cracked windshields are time high now because of Ohio being our governor being so cheap and not allocating the proper money to pave these major roads that are heavy semi traffic. It's a joke. They're intentionally doing it. Then you got to ask the question, where's all this extra money going? Well, I mean, look at our congressmen and women. Look at our state. They become millionaires while in office on a salary that does not compute to being a millionaire. Impossible. You figure living in the areas they live in with their salary, they could never become millionaires while in office, but they are. AOC went from somebody who couldn't afford an apartment in DC to being a multimillionaire now on a government pension salary that is impossible to become a millionaire on. And if you look at how her lifestyle has changed, you got to ask, where's all this money coming? Well, a lot of this money's coming in from corporations, lobbyists paying them, giving to their campaign funds, under the table money. Here, come to this gala. It is our governments that are systematically trying to destroy this country. And they're doing it by allowing our infrastructure to fail. And it's been happening since the 90s. Every new administration, new president, their first campaign promise is to improve the infrastructures. Well, guess what? They're not, because there's so many loopholes within the system that allow people to get rich by taking cutbacks from either overpriced bids when, the way contract jobs supposed to work, you look for the lowest contract, the lowest bidder that, they show you the cost of all the stuff, the cost of their labor, and they set a minimum bid to win that contract. But you'll see where some of the highest bids end up getting the contract. Those laws need to be changed so that money goes back into the infrastructure. But we've also got to where we'll use cheap China steel that any engineer tells you won't work, won't last. We've gotten so far away from American made. There's so many jobs that can be created by bringing back American made products. If we gotta get all of our chips from overseas for these cars, guess what? We don't need those chips. There was nothing wrong with the cars before the chips. They worked just fine. Wait, they didn't because they lasted. You weren't going out buying a new car every 2, 4 years. These cars were lasting 10, 20, 30 years. Junk for clunkers that Obama created was intentionally created by the Green Party and Green Deal to get rid of all the older cars to force people to have to buy new. And they did it at the right time when recession was high, housing market crash. He knew when to do it. Jack's steel price is so high to where people, they were struggling. So yeah, I've got this old car, it's 10, 15 years old. Why not? I'm going to get what I would get for it selling it used. And maybe sometimes more. Dealers are paying 3 to 4, sometimes 6,000, depending on how newer model of car, an expensive car you got, to take your junker and take the that off the price tag, which we all know they jack the price tags up. There's no such thing as a on sale deal. Usually the on sale deal is they jack the prices up before they run their deal, then say it's a sale, and if you wait a couple months, it'll be cheaper than what the sale price was because they raised the price before they raised the sale. It's the biggest trick and scam that these corporation businesses do. But if mom and pop businesses tried to do it, they'd come after them for price gouging. We're living in a day and age where it is literally our government, our elected officials that are trying to destroy this country, that have sold this country out. Then when a disaster happens and people need help, here, let me give you $1,000, sign this. But let me tell you something, guys. There's going to be a lot of people in Palestine that'll wait this out because they know they're going to come with a better deal and they're going to take the opportunity to take the cash and move. Why? You guys don't understand these rural areas unless you live out there. Especially in that area, most of the factories are gone. I mean, you're going to travel a good hour to work a good job. These are heavily reliant on agriculture and farmlands. And what little factory work there is, people stay there. For some of these people, this is going to be a blessing for them to get out, go to a place where they can get better work, better paying jobs. It's just the harsh reality that people don't want to talk about. And a lot of people, they're not going to tell you, no, we're going to fight this. No, you're not. You'll hold out till a better opportunity arrives to take the money. And I don't blame you. I know the areas around there. Fuck, I live out in the rural area. You know, factory jobs aren't that many. Especially, I watched Rossini just 2 years ago close their doors and go to Mexico. And that was the biggest plague around here. The factories would go to overseas. They'd shut their doors down or move to another state where they got better kickbacks. Our rural communities struggle. And they struggle even more when, the government doesn't help us with aid, doesn't help us by passing legislation that's going to lower our gas bills, lower the price of gas at the pump. So as the food prices come down, you know, some of it was due to shortage, but most of it was due to the increased price of gas and diesel. When truckers were paying 3,000, 4,000 to fill their semis up, guess what? We're going to pay extra at the market. When we start having these plants go up in flames for no reason, that's going to cause a shortage. It's going to cause prices to go up. Now that our attention is on the rail system and these semis and trucks crashing with chemicals and produce, let's get real with it. Let's point out why we've got to this point. We've got to this point by the failure of the people we have elected into our state and federal legislation branches not doing their job when it comes to making sure the money goes back into the infrastructure. You want to send over $100 billion to Ukraine. And now we're talking about, May, June? The possibility of the government having to default because they don't have the money. You had $100 billion that you just wasted on a country that's not allied with us, that's not allied with NATO, that we had no business sticking our nose in. We've allowed our farmlands to be bought out by China through private auctions. We had a rich elitist, Bill Gates, who bought up hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland. That is more than likely doing nothing with them, letting them set, getting a kickback from the government under the guise of preserving the land and allowing it to set for 5 years unworked so it rebuilds nutrition. That's the old 90s trick. They pay farmers, pay farmers to let their land set for 5 years. This idea of the Green Party, the Green Deal, it ain't nothing new. This climate bullshit that they keep spewing ain't nothing new. But, you want to talk science? Let's talk science. Some of the best scientific research that has ever come out about our climate change states. And this is through ice samples and core and the rings of trees. We're barely polluting our country, this world. More natural disaster and phenomena has caused more, even at the height of our worst pollution, of us being the worst polluters ever, which was during the coal and steam day and age. Still did not. We had a minute fingerprint compared to Mother Nature. And that's the scientific history, scientific fact. Oh, well, we're going to have all this glacier melting, this all their coasts are going to flood. If you actually go to no weather thing and look it up, we're talking 100 years from now, if not more. They're predicting this, saying, trying to trick us. This is going to happen now within 10, 15 years, when this is 100 years or more out that you can't even predict because the science isn't there. And what science is there, it shows that the Earth does go through those cycles. You should be more worried about a meteor causing a cataclysmic disaster than the imprint that you have on climate change, because you have very little. And that's backed by factual science. But, goes back to what I said about Palestine. Norfolk used their private contractors to test the waters, test the air, saying, oh, there's nothing wrong here, instead of an unsanctioned, unfunded group. If the government's giving them money, or the company that contracted them is giving them money, I can tell you exactly which way their findings are going to lead. It's going to lean to those in favor of those who are paying them, the rhetoric that they want given. And that needs to stop. There's two different types of sciences now. There's a science that's funded by the people through donations, and the science that government and big corporations dump all their money into. I'll tell you who to trust and not to trust. Don't trust the funded government corporation science. Trust the ones that can that's struggling for the funding, because they are putting out the real science. They're telling you the truth. But, honestly, what Biden pulled, saying, oh, you don't need no aid, what DeWine pulled today, and what he had to say, they just committed political suicide. They will not win this state come re-election time. But they don't care. You know why they don't care? Because they've got their foots on our backs and necks, and they think they can break us and destroy us before 2024, before their next election cycle. Because that is what they're trying to do. They've been systematically doing it for years now, allowing foreign entities to dictate our American policies, to dictate our legal rights and liberties and freedoms. Joe Biden should not be in office right now. He should be in full investigation for his ties to China. That should have happened before the election. He's an incompetent president. Should not be president until he goes through the legal system, is found not guilty of any suspicious question. He should not have access to any classified material or intel. But our Congress does nothing. Republicans control the House. They've done nothing besides talk. They haven't brought a bit articles of impeachment up. They're focusing on the same dog and pony show as the previous administration. Just spin it in their own way. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of watching you guys constantly fall victims to their lies of rhetoric and hypocrisy. What you're seeing in Palestine, Ohio, is not a wake-up call to you yet that your government, the people that you elected, don't care about you and that they're intentionally trying to destroy us. You're blind and you're fools. It's supposed to be we the people, not we the elected. They treat us like we're the slaves and they're the masters. And we're their masters. They are our representative. They're our voice, not their own and not some corporations. Look at the censorship that goes on. Now, I'm kind of glad Twitter's been liberated a little bit, but it's still happening. Another country steps in, you can't say this, so we need to freeze your account, lock you out of your account for 3 days because you said a word that Germany don't like, that China don't like. Fuck off. I live in the United States. I don't live in your country for a good reason. Respect my rights and freedoms. Respect our laws. If you want to police your citizens like that, so be it. You have every right to. They're living in your country. They're subjugated to you because they've chosen to be, but they can get out, come here, and go through the legal process, become natural citizens, naturalized citizens, the right way. There's a reason why Biden and the Democrats and some Republicans don't truly care about what's going on the border, because that's another art of war, another part of poisoning the well by flooding the country with immigration, illegal immigration, with refugees, putting a strain on an already strained system. Our borders should be closed, locked down, no different than what any other country does when they get an influx of refugees and the system starts getting taxed. They close their borders. They lock them down. But no, they don't want that. I mean, look how much of us Hollywood's always been a cesspool, but look how bad it's gotten in California. Look how bad it is in New York. Look how bad the black on white violence has become. But if we talk about it, you're a racist. You're a supremacist. I'm neither of those things. Can't be. I'm mixed. Thank you very much. I see what you're showing. I see the race baiting that you're trying to bait. You created the problem. When we should never be talking about race as a problem. But every time something goes on, CNN, MSN, the Democrats, certain Republicans, oh, that's racial. You can't say that. You need to remove this monument. It's racist. You can't talk about all these black people that are going into these stores and just robbing them blind and walking right out. You can't arrest them because that would be racial. It's okay for all these black kids to beat up on these white kids in the schools. But heaven forbid if the white kid beat up the black kid, then it'd be a hate crime. It works both ways, and it's time that we start pushing that issue and taking a stand on that issue. But these are the issues they've created because it divides us. Just like the political labels, Republican, Democrat, conservative, libertarian, and whatever else label you want to use is meant to divide us. We are neither Republican, neither Democrat. We are neither libertarian or conservative. We are an American citizen. We are Americans. Our poli- our politics should be one equal policy, and that is the Constitution and the laws of this land that protects our liberties and our rights and our freedoms. Not laws that restrict them. Corporations that censor us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Gab. I'm tired of seeing the joke of pulling these people in front of Congress. Hear Jim Jordan, all these guys say the same thing they say the last time they pulled them in and do nothing. They're all words, no action. Half our representatives spend way too much time on Twitter tweeting when they should be reading the bills that's coming before them, when they should be writing new legislation that's going to better America and better help the people instead of posting and tweeting on Twitter all the time. We need to re refix our election system to where anybody can be elected, to where there's no limitations that you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank. You've had to have it there, that much money for so many years to even run for an office at the state federal level. We need to get rid of that because we need to get rid of the rich and elite from our government. We need to bring back the people, the everyday working family people, the farmers, the homeless bum on the corner that just happens to have a mouthpiece that gets people to listen and knows how to talk. Because I tell you what, he's more educated than some and 90% of the people we put in Congress. He sees the world for what it really is and he lives it. When our founding fathers created this country, created other election system, created our Constitution, they did it with in mind that anybody could be a congressman, anybody could be a state representative, anybody could become the president. The best president we've ever had in this nation, in this country, was George Washington, the man who did not want the job. We need to get back to the old ways of things. We need to get back to common sense. We need to break these corporations up, restrict them and their control and their influence with their money, how much they influence our governors. We need to completely ban lobbyists from all forms of government, state and federal. We need to heavily punish corporations like Norfolk who have brokerages ties to BlackRock and various other organizations who bring in contractors that give you tell you lies to protect the corporation that paid them. We need to put an end to that. And it starts by paying attention and finally admitting what's going on, not rallying behind a Republican Party or a Democratic Party or a Libertarian Party, but rallying behind your fellow brothers and sisters, your fellow Americans, not a label, and start taking back this country and demanding, hey, if you're going to run for election, you're going to represent the United States, not your party. We're done with the division. We're done with your corruptness. We're done with your broken campaign promises. It says you're going to fix the infrastructure, but you don't fix the laws that allow all the people to get rich off it, and only a fraction of the money you gave to them go back into the infrastructure. You know, we want to go more green with electric and solar. Fix the infrastructure first. Then I would actually be inclined to agree with you on some aspects, but not until you do that. Not until you put your money where your mouth is and start fixing the infrastructure, fixing our power grids so they can actually be able to charge all these cars instead of, oh no, please don't charge your cars. You're causing rolling blackouts in California. We need to shut power down in California because you're taxing the grid. You can keep your electric car. I'll never own one. And I definitely won't own a Tesla. 90% of our rural firefight fire departments, firefighters that live in the rural countries aren't even equipped to deal with a electric car fire because they don't have the chemicals to put it out. They don't have the proper respiratory systems. It is basically when an electric car catches on fire, it is basically a hazmat hazard situation. Unless the fire department has the proper chemical to extinguish it and the proper respiratory system, then the have the ability to properly clean it up. See, these electric cars are more a danger to our natural environment than our old cars. They're worse on pollution in the long run because it contaminates our soil when you go to get rid of the battery. If you can find a place that'll take the battery, most landfills will not take. Actually, every landfill I know around here in a 50-mile radius will not take an electric car battery. Why? Because it is a contamination to the soil that is far worse than a car battery that they cannot recycle, cannot dispose of. Think about that. That's what our politicians have been pushing. They keep pushing. They'll spend money everywhere else but where it needs it, in our roads, our infrastructures, and our produce processing factories, creating new factories that make American-made products, American steel, American wiring. Now, what we are truly seeing is the destruction of America by our elected officials. And it's time we realize that. And it's time that we start talking about this. We start using these core examples that's been in your face forever. I think last year there was over 243 train derailments. Nobody was talking about it then. Some of them were chemical related. Honestly, I don't think many people would have been talking about this if it wasn't for Twitter being a little bit liberated and all the Twitter files and talk has been coming out about that. We've won the war on some fronts, but we haven't totally won them. Censorship still happens on Twitter. Censorship happens on Gab. Can't trust Facebook or Meta. Can't trust the pharmaceutical companies. Can't trust the government's science or private or corporate scientists because they're hired contractors. The only thing we can trust is ourselves. And that's where we have to start building upon. We have to build upon the fact that we are not a Democrat, we're not a Republican, we're brothers and sisters, we're Americans. We're not black, we're not white, Asian, Hispanic, we're American. You are an American citizen. That is your nationality. We are all brothers and sisters. Quit falling victim to the race baiting of a political party that tells you, oh, this is racist. Stop listening to CNN, MSN, Fox that tell you, oh, this was racist. How could 4 black cops that beat up another black guy be supremacist and racist, as CNN tried to portray it? I'll give you the racist part because it was black on black, which has been a huge problem for decades. But they don't want to fix that. And it's not that complicated to fix. You start in the interior and start fixing the school system, improving the education to where these people can get out. And it's just not blacks that are in these areas. There's poor white people, poor Hispanics trapped in these communities because of very little factory work, very little jobs, and the worst of the worst education systems. Start fixing that education system. You know, it's sad. I've experienced this firsthand. I didn't only go to school here in the United States. I went to school in Brazil too, and it's sad when this was back in the 90s when our school systems were pretty good. I was still 2 years ahead of my class in Brazil than I was here in the United States. The United States was 2 years behind, and that's been actually statistical sound fact to this day. Our education system is 2 to 4 years behind almost every other country's education system, and it should never be. We need to strip these bullshit curriculums of race theory, gender studies out of colleges. We need to get back to the basics of college studies, educational for doctors, lawyers, engineers, architects, scientists, archaeologists, not some course in gender studies, a master's in gender studies that you'll never use. We need to punish colleges that offer those courses by stripping them of funding. We need to make our colleges affordable for everyone, so people don't have to rely on sports to get into a college as their only way where they can get in and afford it if they don't have the grades or the highest grades to get in or a sports scholarship to get in, to where they can actually pay for working a part-time job. Everything's become corporations. Our colleges are nothing more than corporations within themselves. And it's our elected officials that have created this pandemic. And it is a pandemic. It's a cesspool of people, greedy people getting rich off others and dictating who can join them and who can't. We don't want you to be making 100, 250,000 a year. We need you to be down there in the 30s and 20,000 a year. We can never let you get above that. That's their mentality. You are the slave labor. They don't want you to get in their reach, because when people like us get that kind of money, we fight fire with fire. We start making changes. Now we can become elected officials because we have the money in our bank accounts that they say we have to have. It is a rigged process, my friends. And they are the ones that are intentionally destroying this country. Sit back and think about it. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm keeping this one short. Like I said, my connection's crappy. I don't even know how this is coming through. I'm not even on the computer. It's like, the promise of better internet. Well, tell you what, those that live out in the rural area, I still haven't seen fiber optics or faster internet. Actually, our internet's gotten worse. Just another one of their lies and broken promises. Oh, it'll take 7 to 8 years. No, it won't. Bullshit. You feed that lie to somebody else. It'll take that long because you want it to take that long, because you want people to forget that you made the promise. Or you want to be able to reuse it in the next election cycle. And that's what they do, guys. They do it all the time. Nothing changes. Everything stays the same. That fact, it doesn't even stay the same. It's been getting worse. Steadily. They are literally trying to destroy America. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Till the next one, you guys be safe, stay warm.